She was shivering in the rain, abandoned at a stranger's gate like unwanted cargo. The Mafia boss next door found her there, soaking, terrified, with nowhere else to go. He only meant to offer shelter for one night. But the moment he saw the mark behind her ear, everything changed. The storm hit the California coast like a sledgehammer. Dominic Ventura's black Escalade carved through sheets of rain, headlights barely cutting through the darkness. His knuckles were still bruised from the meeting downtown, 3 broken fingers on a loan shark who thought skimming from the Ventura Syndicate was a smart career move. It wasn't. "Boss, you want me to wait?" his driver, Marco, asked as they approached the private gates.
No.
"Get home to your family." The mansion loomed ahead, perched on the cliff like a fortress. Dominic had bought it for the isolation. No neighbors except Carter Mallory's gaudy estate across the private drive, and Mallory was rarely home.
Perfect.
As Marco pulled away, Dominic noticed something wrong. A figure huddled against Mallory's gate.
Small.
Shaking. His hand moved instinctively to the Glock under his jacket. This road was gated, monitored, impossible to access without clearance. Yet there she was, a woman in a soaked white dress, barefoot, arms wrapped around herself like she was trying to hold her bones together. Dominic walked closer, rain hammering his shoulders. "Hey," his voice cut through the storm. "You lost." She looked up, and something in Dominic's chest tightened. She couldn't have been more than 25, with dark hair plastered to her face and eyes that held too much fear for someone just lost. Her lips were blue. Please," she stammered, teeth chattering.
He won't.
"He won't let me in." "Who won't?" "Mr. Mallory." I rang the bell. I called. He looked at me through the camera and said no. Dominic's jaw clenched. Mallory. Of course. The billionaire tech mogul who thought buying a mansion next to a mafia boss made him edgy. Idiot probably forgot he ordered takeout and left this girl stranded. "How long have you been out here?" 3 hours. Maybe 4. Her voice cracked. "I don't have anywhere else to go. My passport, my phone, everything's in my bag, and he took it when I got here this morning." Red flags exploded in Dominic's mind. This wasn't a forgotten date. "What's your name?"
Aya.
Aya Nakamura. She tried to stand but stumbled. Dominic caught her before she hit the ground. She weighed nothing. "I'm supposed to be his bride." The word hit Dominic like a slap. "His what?" "Mail order bride. From the agency. I signed the contract in Tokyo 3 months ago." Her voice was barely a whisper. "He was supposed to marry me. Instead, he tried to lock me in the basement. Said I needed to adjust first. When I refused, he threw me out." Dominic had seen a lot of evil in his 38 years. He'd ordered hits, burned buildings, destroyed lives. But this casual cruelty, this ownership of another human being, made his blood boil in a way violence never did. "Come on," he pulled her toward his gate. "Wait, where?" "My house. You'll freeze to death out here." Aya resisted weakly. "I can't. Mr. Mallory said if I left the property, he'd call immigration. I'm on a fiancé visa. If he cancels it, let him try." Dominic's gate recognized his fingerprint and swung open. He half-carried Aya up the driveway, through the massive oak doors, into the warmth of his foyer. She gasped at the sudden heat, her whole body convulsing. "Guest rooms upstairs. Second door on the left." He grabbed a blanket from the closet and wrapped it around her shoulders. "Hot shower, warm clothes in the dresser. Don't care if they fit. Just get dry." She stared at him like he'd spoken a foreign language. "Why are you helping me?" "Because Mallory's a piece of shit and you look like you're about to die on my doorstep."
Go.
She went. Dominic poured himself 2 fingers of whiskey and tried to process what just happened. Mail order bride. In 2024. In California.
Next door to him.
His phone buzzed. Unknown number. Ventura. "This is Maxwell Hunt, head of security for Carter Mallory." The voice was clipped, professional. "You have property belonging to Mr. Mallory. We're coming to retrieve it." Dominic's grip tightened on the glass. I don't have any property of Mallory's. The girl, Aya Nakamura. She's under contract. She's a human being, not a fucking couch. Mr. Mallory paid a substantial fee for her arrangement. She belongs. Say belongs one more time, Dominic's voice dropped to a whisper. I dare you. Silence. We'll be there in 5 minutes. If you interfere with Mr. Mallory's legal arrangement, we'll involve law enforcement. The line went dead. Dominic drained his whiskey. Legal arrangement. The words tasted like poison. He'd spent 20 years building the Ventura Syndicate, controlling half the West Coast's underground economy, and he'd never trafficked people. Drugs, guns, money, sure. But people? That was a line even monsters didn't cross. Apparently, Mallory hadn't gotten that memo. Headlights swept across his windows. 2 black SUVs rolled up the driveway, followed by a third. 9 men stepped out, all wearing tactical gear and carrying weapons that were definitely not legal in California. Dominic opened his front door before they could knock. Gentlemen, he smiled, the expression never reaching his eyes. You're on private property. Maxwell Hunt stepped forward, a wall of muscle in an expensive suit. The girl.
Now. No.
Mr. Ventura, we don't want trouble. Then leave. Hunt's hand moved toward his jacket. Dominic was faster. His Glock was out and pressed against Hunt's forehead before the man could blink. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to get back in those trucks and disappear, Dominic said softly. Or I'm going to paint my driveway with your brains, then call my guys to dump your bodies in the Pacific. Your choice. Behind him, he heard a gasp. Aya stood at the top of the stairs, wrapped in one of his old sweatshirts, her hair still damp. She looked terrified. Hunt's eyes flicked to her. Miss Nakamura, Mr. Mallory requests. She's not going anywhere, Dominic cocked the gun. 20 seconds. The security team exchanged glances. They were professionals, but they weren't stupid. Everyone on the coast knew Dominic Ventura's reputation. The Phantom Don. The man who'd single-handedly ended the Rodriguez cartel's push into California by leaving their leadership hanging from the Golden Gate Bridge. Hunt raised his hand slowly. This isn't over. Yes, Dominic said. It is. The SUVs reversed down the driveway. Dominic watched until their taillights disappeared, then locked his door and set the security system. When he turned around, Aya was sitting on the stairs, her face buried in her hands. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to bring trouble. Hey, Dominic holstered his gun and walked to the stairs. Not your fault. Mallory's the problem, not you. She looked up, tears streaming down her face.
You don't understand.
The contract I signed. It's legal. If I break it, I get deported. If I stay here, he'll come back with police, lawyers, everything. You can't fight that. Dominic crouched to her eye level.
Aya.
I'm a mafia boss. I've fought wars most people can't imagine. Trust me, I can handle one billionaire with a god complex. For the first time since he'd found her, something like hope flickered in her eyes. Why? She asked. Why would you risk everything for a stranger? Dominic didn't have a good answer. Maybe it was the way Mallory's men had called her property. Maybe it was the bruises he'd spotted on her wrist when he'd carried her inside. Maybe it was just that he was tired of watching powerful men destroy innocent people. Because, he said finally, someone should. Outside, thunder rolled across the cliffs. The storm wasn't over. Neither was this. Dawn broke gray and cold over the Pacific. Dominic hadn't slept. He'd spent the night in his office, making calls, pulling strings, trying to understand what kind of legal nightmare he'd walked into. Every lawyer he contacted said the same thing. Fiancé visas were binding, mail-order bride contracts were technically legal if processed correctly, and interfering could mean federal charges. He didn't care. At 6 a.m., his head of security, Vincent, called. Boss, we got a problem. 3 SUVs just entered the private road. Not Mallory's guys from last night. These are professionals. Military contractors, maybe. How many? 12.
Armed.
They're setting up a perimeter. Dominic checked the security feeds. Vincent was right. These weren't rent-a-cops. These were the kind of men governments hired for black ops. Mallory had upgraded. Wake the crew. I want 20 men on the property in 30 minutes. Already done.
Boss.
What's this about? Mallory thinks he owns people. I'm teaching him different. Dominic found Aya in the kitchen, staring at a cup of coffee she hadn't touched. She'd changed into jeans and a sweater from the guest room, clothes that had belonged to his sister before she died 5 years ago. The sight made his chest tight. They're back, aren't they? She asked quietly.
Yeah.
But I've got people coming. Mr. Ventura, she set down the cup, her hands shaking. Last night, before Mr. Mallory threw me out.
He said something.
He said I should have stayed dead with the rest of them. Dominic went very still. The rest of who? I don't know. Asked what he meant, and that's when he tried to lock me in the basement, her voice cracked. He said the basement was supposed to be temporary. Just until he figured out what to do with me. When I fought back, he got angry and threw me outside instead. A chill ran down Dominic's spine. This wasn't about a bride contract. This was something else entirely. Where are you from? Originally? Osaka. But I was raised by my aunt and uncle. My parents died when I was 8. House fire. What were their names? Kenji and Yuki Nakamura. Why? A massive explosion shook the house. Dominic grabbed Aya and dove behind the kitchen island as windows shattered. Through the ringing in his ears, he heard Vincent's voice on his earpiece. Boss? They just blew the front gate. They're coming in hot. Dominic pulled Aya toward the panic room behind the wine cellar. Stay here. Don't open this door for anyone but me. What's happening? Mallory just declared war. He sealed her inside and ran for the armory. His men were already pouring onto the property, 20 of the most dangerous soldiers the Ventura Syndicate had. But Mallory's contractors had them outgunned and outpositioned. Dominic grabbed a tactical vest and his favorite rifle. He'd built this mansion with multiple defensible positions. Time to use them. He reached the second-floor balcony, overlooking the driveway. Mallory's men had formed a wedge, advancing toward the house with military precision. But they'd made one mistake. They'd assumed Dominic would hide. He didn't. Dominic vaulted over the balcony railing, landed on the first-floor overhang, and opened fire. 3 contractors dropped before they knew what hit them. His men surged from the flanks, turning the driveway into a kill box. The battle lasted 8 minutes. When it was over, 6 of Mallory's contractors were dead, the rest retreating to the private road. Dominic's crew had taken 2 casualties, both superficial wounds. Vincent approached, breathing hard. Boss, we can't keep this up. Mallory's got unlimited money. He'll just keep sending people. Then, I'm ending this now. Dominic strode through the broken gate, down the private road, directly toward the remaining contractors. They raised their weapons, but he kept walking, hands loose at his sides. Tell Mallory I want to talk. 1 hour. The lighthouse on Point de Mai. He comes alone, or I start killing everyone in his organization from the bottom up. The lead contractor, a scarred man with cold eyes, studied him. He won't come. He will. Because if he doesn't, I'm going to his penthouse downtown and dragging him out in front of every camera in Los Angeles. Then I'm going to make him explain why he's trying to murder a girl he imported like cargo. The contractor's expression flickered. You don't know what you're protecting. Enlighten me. That girl? She's not just some bride. Mallory's been searching for her for 15 years. Whatever she is, she's worth dying for. To him. The contractor turned and walked away, leaving Dominic standing in the road as rain began to fall again. 15 years. House fire. Should have stayed dead with the rest of them. Dominic pulled out his phone and called his oldest contact, a woman named Sarah Chun who specialized in information the government wanted buried.
Sarah.
I need everything you can find on Kenji and Yuki Nakamura. Osaka, Japan. Died in a house fire around 2007 or 2008. And I need it in 30 minutes. That's going to cost you. Bill me. He hung up and looked back at his mansion. Somewhere inside, Aya was hiding in a panic room, terrified and confused.
She thought this was about a bride contract.
Dominic was starting to realize it was about something much worse. The lighthouse at Point Dume stood empty in the rain. Dominic checked his watch. Mallory had 45 minutes to show up, or the war would really begin. Mallory never showed. Dominic waited at the lighthouse for 2 hours, rain soaking through his jacket, before admitting the billionaire was a coward.
Fine.
He'd tried diplomacy. When he returned to the mansion, his phone buzzed with Sarah Chen's report. He opened it in the car, and his blood went cold. Kenji and Yuki Nakamura, deceased 2008. Official cause: accidental house fire. Unofficial: suspected arson. No arrests made. Both were low-level accountants for the Seki clan, one of the most powerful Yakuza families in Osaka until 2008, when the entire organization was systematically eliminated in what Japanese authorities called the bloodiest gang war in modern history, over 200 dead in 6 months. The Seki clan was completely wiped out.
No survivors.
Except Aya. Dominic found her in the guest room, curled up on the bed, staring at nothing. She looked up when he entered, her eyes red from crying. Is it over?
No.
But we need to talk. He sat in the chair across from her. I need to see behind your ear. Your left ear. She blinked. What? Just trust me. Slowly, she brushed her hair aside. Dominic leaned closer, and there it was, so small he'd almost missed it. A tattoo, barely the size of a dime, of a stylized chrysanthemum with a single falling petal. His stomach dropped. Do you know what this is? He asked quietly. A tattoo? I've had it since I was a child. My mother said it was a family tradition. Dominic pulled out his phone and showed her the research. This is the emblem of the Seki clan, one of the most powerful Yakuza families in Japan. They were completely destroyed in 2008. She stared at the screen, her face draining of color.
No. That's...
My parents were accountants. Normal people. They didn't. Your parents worked for the Seki clan. Maybe they were just employees, but that tattoo? That's only given to blood family. Direct descendants. He paused. You're not just some random woman Mallory imported. You're the last living member of the Seki bloodline. The room went silent except for the sound of rain against the windows. That's impossible, she whispered.
I'm nobody.
I've been nobody my whole life. My aunt and uncle barely kept me fed. I worked in a convenience store until the agency recruited me. You're the heir to one of the most powerful crime families in Asia. Or you were, until someone wiped them out. Aya stood abruptly, pacing. This doesn't make sense. If what you're saying is true, why would Mr. Mallory want me? Why pretend to arrange a marriage? Dominic's mind raced through the possibilities. Because you're evidence. A living witness to whatever really happened to your family. The official story was gang warfare, but what if it wasn't? What if someone orchestrated the whole thing? Who would do that? Someone with enough money and power to make an entire crime family disappear. Someone like Mallory. Aya sank back onto the bed, her hands trembling.
He said I should have stayed dead.
Oh God. He knew. He's known this whole time what I am. Dominic's phone rang. Vincent. Boss, you need to see this. I'm sending you a video. The video loaded, security footage from downtown Los Angeles, dated 3 days ago. It showed Mallory entering a private club, followed by 3 men. Sarah's image recognition software had already identified them. Chin Wu, head of the Red Lotus Triad in San Francisco. Antonio Greco, underboss of the Greco family in New York. And James Richardson, a legitimate businessman who everyone knew ran half the illegal arms trade in the Pacific Northwest. 4 major crime figures meeting secretly. What are they planning? Aya asked, looking over his shoulder. I don't know. But I'm going to find out. Dominic stood. Get some rest. I'm posting guards outside your door. Wait, she grabbed his arm. Why are you doing this? You don't even know me. I'm dragging you into something that could destroy everything you've built. Dominic looked down at her hand on his arm, then met her eyes. In the past 24 hours, she'd been abandoned, hunted, and discovered her entire life was a lie. But she wasn't broken. There was steel underneath that fear. When I was 15, my father was killed by a rival family. They came to our house, shot him in front of me and my sister, then burned the place down. My sister and I barely escaped. He paused. I spent 20 years building power, so I'd never be helpless again. So I could protect people who couldn't protect themselves. I'm not your responsibility.
No.
You're not. He pulled his arm back gently. But maybe that's exactly why I should help you. After he left, Dominic headed to his office and called a meeting with his top lieutenants. They arrived within the hour: Vincent, Marcus, and Lucia. 3 people he trusted with his life. He explained everything. This is insane, Marcus said immediately. You're protecting the heir to a family that was exterminated? Every syndicate in the Pacific Rim probably has a price on her head. We don't know that. We don't know anything. That's the problem. Marcus slammed his hand on the desk. Boss, with all respect, this girl is a live grenade. If Mallory's involved with the Triads and the Greco family, we're looking at a multi-syndicate operation. We can't fight that. I'm not asking you to fight, Dominic said coldly. I'm telling you what's happening. Lucia spoke up quietly.
What if Marcus is right?
What if protecting her starts a war we can't win? Dominic met each of their eyes. Then we fight anyway. The safe house sat in the industrial district of downtown Los Angeles, hidden between abandoned warehouses and graffiti-tagged walls. Dominic went alone, as requested, leaving his security detail 3 blocks away. Inside, Tommy Numbers Chen waited, surrounded by 6 monitors displaying financial data streams. Tommy had been Dominic's informant for 12 years, a forensic accountant who'd turned to tracking criminal money flows after his brother was killed in a gang war. If anyone could trace Mallory's connections to the Siki massacre, it was Tommy. You look like hell, Tommy said without looking up. I've had a long week. Tell me you found something. Tommy finally turned, his expression grave. I found everything. And Dominic? You need to walk away from this girl. Right now. Not happening. Talk. Tommy pulled up a file on the central monitor. The Siki clan massacre in 2008 wasn't random gang warfare like the report said. It was a coordinated extermination funded by a coalition of Western businessmen and crime families. They called it Operation Chrysanthemum. Dominic's jaw clenched.
Why?
Control. The Siki clan controlled 90% of the smuggling routes between Asia and North America. Drugs, weapons, people, everything flowed through their network. But they had rules. No human trafficking. No children. No biological weapons. They were Yakuza, but they had a code. And someone wanted those routes without the restrictions.
Exactly.
Carter Mallory, your friendly neighborhood billionaire, wasn't always in tech. 20 years ago, he ran a private military contractor company called Aegis Solutions. They specialized in international logistics, code for moving anything anywhere, no questions asked. Tommy pulled up another file showing young Carter Mallory in military fatigues, standing beside men Dominic recognized from intelligence reports.
War Kriminals.
Arms dealers. The kind of people who made Dominic look like a saint. In 2007, Mallory approached the Siki clan with a business proposal, Tommy continued. He wanted to use their routes for his operations. They refused. Said his cargo violated their code. 6 months later, Operation Chrysanthemum began. Who else was involved? Chun Wu from the Red Lotus Triad. He wanted the West Coast ports. Antonio Greco from New York. He wanted the East Coast distribution. James Richardson. He wanted the weapons channels. And about 5 other families I'm still identifying. They pooled resources, hired mercenaries, and systematically eliminated every Siki member they could find. Dominic felt sick. Over 200 people. Men, women, and some children. They didn't discriminate. The official story was gang warfare because they made it look like internal conflict. Burned houses, staged betrayals, false flag operations. By the time Japanese authorities figured out what was happening, it was too late. The Siki clan was extinct. Except Aya. Except Aya, Tommy pulled up a photo of a young girl with her parents, Kenji and Yuki Nakamura. Her parents weren't just accountants. Her father was the Siki clan's chief financial officer. He managed every transaction, every route, every offshore account. When he realized what was happening, he tried to expose it. Let me guess, house fire. Mallory's mercenaries made it look accidental. But before they died, Kenji and Yuki hid their daughter with Yuki's sister in a different city. Changed her last name from Siki to Nakamura. Kept her hidden for 15 years. Dominic paced the small room. So, why bring her here now? Why the mail-order bride scheme? Because loose ends make people nervous. 3 months ago, Kenji's sister died, natural causes. But before she died, she told Aya the truth about her parents. Not everything, but enough to make Aya curious. She started asking questions, searching records. And someone noticed. Mallory noticed. He couldn't just kill her in Japan, too many witnesses, too much scrutiny. So he created a legal way to bring her to the United States. A fiancé visa through a mail-order bride agency he secretly owns. Once she was here, isolated and alone, he could make her disappear quietly. The basement, Dominic said quietly. He was going to kill her in his basement. Probably. Or hand her over to his partners. Either way, she wasn't supposed to survive. Tommy shut down the monitors. Dominic, everyone involved in Operation Chrysanthemum has spent 15 years building empires on top of that bloodshed. If Aya's existence becomes public knowledge, it threatens everything. They'll burn the world down to silence her. Then I'll burn it down first. This isn't some territorial dispute. You're talking about 4 major crime families, international cartels, and a billionaire with government connections. You can't win this. Dominic turned to face him. What would you have me do? Hand her over? Let them finish what they started. I'd have you survive. Think about your people. Your family. Marcus, Vincent, Lucia, everyone who depends on you. Is one girl worth all their lives? The question hung in the air like poison. What if it was your brother? Dominic asked quietly. What if someone could have saved him, but chose not to, because it was too dangerous? Tommy's face crumpled. That's not fair.
No.
But it's true. Dominic headed for the door. Send me everything you have. Names, accounts, locations. If they want a war, I'll give them one they'll never forget. Dominic. I know the risks, but I've spent 20 years becoming a monster, so I could protect people from other monsters. If I can't protect one innocent woman from the men who murdered her entire family, then what was it all for? He left Tommy in the safe house, surrounded by evidence of an atrocity the world had forgotten. But Dominic wouldn't forget. And neither would Aya. The Pacific Coast Highway stretched empty under a blood-orange sunset. Dominic had made the decision an hour ago, get Aya out of Los Angeles entirely. His safe house in Big Sur was remote, defensible, and unknown to everyone except Vincent. Aya sat in the passenger seat, silent since they'd left the mansion. She'd barely reacted when Dominic explained they were relocating. Just nodded, grabbed nothing, and walked to the car like a ghost. You okay? He asked, eyes on the rearview mirror. My entire family was murdered as part of a business deal. Her voice was hollow. I was supposed to be murdered too. I spent 15 years thinking I was nobody, and now I find out I'm the last survivor of a massacre. So no, I'm not okay. Fair enough. Why didn't my aunt tell me? She had 15 years. Why let me live in ignorance? Dominic checked the mirror again. A black SUV had been trailing them for the past 3 miles, keeping a consistent distance. Maybe she was protecting you. If you didn't know who you were, you couldn't accidentally reveal it. Instead, I walked right into Mallory's trap. Signed his contract. Flew across an ocean to my own execution. She laughed bitterly. Some protection. The SUV was getting closer. Aya, I need you to listen carefully. There's a car following us. When I say so, I want you to get down on the floor and stay there. Understand? Her eyes widened. They found us. Looks like it. The SUV accelerated suddenly, closing the distance. Dominic floored the accelerator, his Escalade surging forward. The coastal highway curved dangerously here, cliffs on one side, the Pacific Ocean crashing against rocks 200 feet below on the other. Get down.
Now.
Aya dropped to the floor as the SUV rammed them from behind. The impact sent them skidding toward the guardrail. Dominic fought the wheel, tires screaming, and regained control inches from the edge. A second SUV appeared ahead, blocking the road. Hold on. Dominic cranked the wheel hard right, smashing through the roadblock SUV's front quarter panel. Metal shrieked. Glass exploded. The Escalade fishtailed but stayed on the road. Behind them, both SUVs gave chase. Gunfire erupted. Bullets punched through the rear window, missing Aya by inches. Dominic drew his Glock one-handed while steering with his knee, a trick he'd learned 20 years ago and prayed he'd never need again. He fired 3 shots through the broken rear window. The lead SUV's windshield spiderwebbed, and it swerved wildly before crashing into the cliff wall. One down. The second SUV pulled alongside, trying to force them off the road. Dominic could see the driver clearly now, military contractor, same type as this morning. Professional. Determined. Amateur mistake. Dominic slammed on the brakes. The SUV shot past, and he immediately accelerated, ramming its rear quarter panel. Physics did the rest. The SUV spun out of control, crashed through the guardrail, and plummeted toward the ocean below. Silence except for the engine, and whined through the broken windows. Are they gone? Aya's voice was small from the floor.
Yeah.
You can get up. She climbed back into the seat, her whole body shaking. Blood trickled from a cut on her forehead where glass had grazed her. Dominic reached over, checking the wound with gentle fingers. You're okay. Just a scratch. They tried to kill us. They actually tried to. Her breath came in gasps. Panic attack. Dominic pulled onto a scenic overlook and killed the engine.
Aya.
Look at me. Breathe with me.
In.
And out.
In.
And out. She followed his rhythm, her breathing gradually slowing. When color returned to her face, she spoke, her voice deadly quiet. I wasn't bought as a bride. I was imported to be murdered. Yes. Everything, the agency, the contract, the visa, it was all fake. A trap. Yes. She looked out at the ocean, tears streaming down her face. How many others? How many women did that agency send to men like Mallory? The question hit Dominic like a punch. He hadn't thought about that. I don't know. We need to find out. If that agency is his, then. She turned to him, fury replacing fear. How many other women are in basements right now? How many disappeared and nobody noticed because they were foreigners with no family? Dominic's respect for her doubled. Most people would be catatonic after what she'd just experienced. Instead, she was thinking about other victims. First, we get you somewhere safe. Then we figure out how to burn Mallory's entire operation to the ground. No, her voice was steel. No more running. Those men back there? They weren't trying to capture me. They were trying to kill me. Which means Mallory's decided I'm more dangerous alive than dead. You are. Then let's be dangerous, she wiped her tears away. You said my father managed the Siki clan's finances. Every transaction, every account. What if he left records? What if there's proof of what Mallory and his partners did? Dominic started the engine. Your aunt, did she leave you anything? Papers, files, a storage unit. Aya thought for a moment. A safety deposit box. In San Francisco. She gave me the key before she died, but said not to open it until I was ready. I thought she meant emotionally ready. But maybe she meant ready to fight. The sun was setting as they merged back onto the highway, heading north now instead of south. Big Sur would have to wait. If there was evidence in that safety deposit box, it could be the weapon they needed. But Dominic knew the clock was ticking. Mallory would realize his mercenaries failed. He'd send more. Better ones. And next time, they might not be so lucky. The warehouse sat in the industrial district, anonymous among dozens of identical buildings. But this one belonged to Dominic, a distribution hub for his legitimate shipping business and, when needed, a meeting place his crew considered neutral ground. Tonight it was a war room. Dominic arrived with Aya just after midnight, both still shaken from the highway attack. His lieutenants were already waiting: Vincent, Marcus, Lucia, and 8 other key members of the Ventura Syndicate. Men and women who'd built their lives around Dominic's leadership. The tension was immediate. "Boss, we need to talk," Marcus said before Dominic even closed the door. "Privately. Anything you say to me, you can say in front of Aya." Marcus's jaw tightened.
Fine.
"This is insane. You're protecting one woman against multiple crime families, a billionaire with unlimited resources, and God knows who else. We just lost 2 good soldiers on that highway. How many more are you willing to sacrifice?" "As many as it takes." The room erupted. Voices overlapped, some supporting Marcus, others defending Dominic. Lucia stepped forward, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Everyone shut up." She waited for silence. "Marcus, say what you need to say. Clearly." Marcus looked at Aya, then back at Dominic. "I've followed you for 12 years. Through territory wars, federal investigations, cartel conflicts, I've never questioned your decisions. But this isn't business. This isn't even revenge. This is you risking everything we've built for a stranger." "She's not a stranger anymore. She's a death sentence." Marcus slammed his fist on a shipping crate. "Mallory's connected to the triads, the Greco family, international arms dealers. If we keep protecting her, we're declaring war on half the criminal organizations in North America.
Our people will die.
Our families will be targeted. Everything we've spent 20 years building will burn." Several crew members nodded in agreement. Vincent spoke up, his voice measured. "Boss, I'm loyal to you. Always have been. But Marcus has a point. We need to consider the cost. Maybe there's a compromise." "There's no compromise with men who murder children," Dominic said coldly. Aya's family was exterminated.
Over 200 people.
Women, kids, elderly. All because they refused to let their routes be used for human trafficking and biological weapons. "That's terrible," Marcus said. "It is. But it's not our fight. We're not heroes, Dominic. We're criminals. We steal, we extort, we hurt people who get in our way. When did we become the good guys? We're not good guys. But there are still lines we don't cross." "Lines?" Marcus laughed bitterly. "You've ordered hits on 17 people in the last 5 years alone. You've burned buildings, destroyed families, ruined lives. But suddenly this one woman is different." Dominic's eyes went cold. "Yes."
Why?
"Because she's pretty? Because you feel guilty? Because you think saving her makes up for all the shit we've done? Because someone should." Dominic's voice dropped to a whisper. "Because when my father was murdered and my sister and I were running for our lives, no one helped us. Everyone looked the other way because it was too dangerous, too complicated, too expensive. We survived by pure luck. Aya deserves better than luck." The warehouse fell silent. Aya, who'd been standing quietly near the door, finally spoke. "I can leave. I don't want people dying because of me." "You're not leaving," Dominic said. "Dominic, please. They're right. I'm not worth a war." "Yes, you are." He turned to face his crew. "Every single person in this room has benefited from the Ventura Syndicate. We pay well. We protect our own. We don't abandon people when things get difficult. That's what separates us from animals like Mallory. So I'm going to say this once. Aya stays under our protection. Anyone who has a problem with that can walk away right now. No hard feelings."
No retaliation.
No one moved. "But if you stay," Dominic continued, "you fight. You protect her like you'd protect any member of this family. Because that's what she is now, family." Marcus shook his head. "You're going to get us all killed. Maybe. But we'll die knowing we stood for something. Standing for something doesn't mean shit when you're dead." "Then leave." Dominic met his old friend's eyes. "I mean it, Marcus. If you can't follow me on this, walk away. I won't hold it against you. Marcus stared at him for a long moment, conflict warring across his face. Finally, he exhaled slowly. You're an idiot. Probably. And this is the stupidest thing you've ever done. Definitely. But you're my idiot, Marcus extended his hand. If we're going to war, at least make it count. Dominic shook his hand, relief flooding through him. One by one, the other crew members stepped forward, pledging their support. Even those who'd initially sided with Marcus came around, won over by Dominic's conviction, if not his logic. Lucia was last. For the record, I think you're both idiots. But I'm in, she looked at Aya. You better be worth it, girl. I'll try to be, Aya said quietly. Vincent pulled up a map on his laptop. Okay, if we're doing this, we need a plan. Mallory will come at us again, probably with more resources. We need to shore up defenses, establish safe houses, and figure out what's on that USB drive. Already working on it, Lucia said. I've got a tech guy who owes me a favor. He'll crack the encryption. We also need intel on Mallory's partners, Dominic added. Tommy gave me names, but we need locations, routines, weaknesses. If they want war, we'll take the fight to them. The meeting lasted another 2 hours, transforming from mutiny to war council. By the time they dispersed, everyone understood the stakes. This wasn't business as usual. This was existential. As the warehouse emptied, Aya approached Dominic. Thank you. I know what you risked by. Don't thank me yet. They're right. This could destroy everything. Then why do it? Dominic thought about his father's blood on the floor, his sister's screams, the helplessness of being 15 and hunted. He thought about 20 years of building power specifically so he'd never be helpless again. Because power without purpose is just cruelty, he said finally. And I'm tired of being cruel. They left the warehouse as dawn approached, both knowing the fragile peace wouldn't last. Somewhere, Mallory and his partners were planning their next move. But now, so was Dominic. The temple sat tucked between crumbling buildings in San Francisco's Chinatown, easy to miss if you didn't know where to look. Dawn light filtered through red paper lanterns as Dominic and Aya climbed the worn stone steps. They'd retrieved the safety deposit box contents an hour ago, just a single photograph of young Aya with her parents and a handwritten note in Japanese. Aya had translated it with trembling hands. When you're ready to remember, find Master Yoshida. He knew your grandfather. Master Yoshida was older than the temple itself, or so it seemed. He sat in the meditation hall, wrapped in saffron robes, his face a roadmap of wrinkles. When Aya entered, his eyes widened with recognition. Impossible, he whispered in Japanese. You have your mother's face. Aya approached slowly, Dominic hanging back near the entrance. Master Yoshida? My aunt told me to find you. Yuki's child.
Yes.
I wondered if this day would come. He gestured to the cushions before him.
Seat.
You carry questions like stones. I need to know about my family. My real family. The Siki clan. The old monk's expression darkened. That name should remain buried. It can't. Not anymore. People are trying to kill me because of who I am. I need to understand why. Yoshida studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Your grandfather, Hiroshi Siki, was my closest friend. When he built his empire, he never forgot honor. He ruled with strength, but also with principle. He paused. That honor made him powerful. It also made him enemies. What happened to him? The same thing that happened to your parents. To everyone, Yoshida stood slowly and beckoned them deeper into the temple.
Come.
There are things you should see. He led them through corridors thick with incense smoke to a small shrine room. The walls were covered with photographs, dozens of Japanese faces, young and old, all marked with a single red chrysanthemum painted in the corner. The dead, Yoshida said quietly. I performed last rites for 43 of them myself. The others. There was nothing left to perform rites for. Aya's breath caught. She moved closer to the photographs, and Dominic watched her face transform as she studied each one. Her fingers touched a photo of a young woman holding a baby. "That's my mother," she whispered. "And that's me." The memories hit her like a freight train. She gasped, stumbling backward. Dominic caught her as images flooded her mind, fragments she'd buried or forgotten, now erupting with crystal clarity. A compound at night, paper screens, the smell of cherry blossoms. Her mother's voice. "Aya-chan, we're going to play a game. You must be very, very quiet." Hiding in a closet, her mother's hand pressed over her mouth. Sounds outside. Shouting. Gunfire. Smoke. Flames licking up the walls. Men in dark clothes. Not Japanese. Americans. One of them tall with silver hair. "Mallory," Aya breathed. I saw him there the night my parents died." Dominic's grip on her tightened. "You're sure?" He was younger, but yes, he was there. He was talking to another man. They were speaking English. Her eyes went distant, pulling up the memory. The other man said, "Are you sure about this?" And Mallory said, "They knew too much. All of them. No loose ends." Yoshida's face went pale. "You remember this?" "I do now. My father. He grabbed me from the closet. He ran with me through the burning house. I remember his hands were burned, but he wouldn't let go. He got me outside, to my aunt who was waiting in a car. The last thing he said was," her voice broke. He said, "Tell her who she is when she's strong enough to survive it." Tears streamed down her face as 15 years of suppressed trauma came rushing back. The smell of smoke. Her mother's scream. The sound of her father's body hitting the ground behind them as they drove away. Dominic felt rage like molten steel in his chest. Mallory hadn't just ordered the massacre, he'd been there. He'd watched children die. "There's more," Yoshida said gently. He pulled out an old wooden box from beneath the shrine. "Your father gave this to me 3 days before he died. He said if anything happened to him, I should keep it until Hiroshi Seki's heir came asking questions." Inside the box was a USB drive. He said it contained insurance. Yoshida continued. Proof of crimes that would destroy powerful men. He wanted leverage to protect his family. Instead, he gestured to the photographs on the wall. Aya took the USB drive with shaking hands. "What's on it?" "I don't know. I was told not to look, only to keep it safe. Your father trusted that someday you would need it." Dominic's phone buzzed. "Vincent. Boss, we have a problem. Mallory just filed kidnapping charges against you. Says you're holding Aya against her will. FBI is getting involved." "We need to move," Dominic said.
Now.
But Aya wasn't ready to leave. She stood before the photographs, staring at her family, her real family. People she'd never known but who'd died protecting her. "I won't run anymore," she said quietly. "These people deserve justice. My parents deserve justice." "Justice is great," Dominic replied. "But first, we need to survive long enough to deliver it." Yoshida pressed something into Aya's hand, a small charm. "Your grandfather gave me this when you were born. He said every Seki carries their strength in their blood. You are the last. Make them remember what that means." As they left the temple, Aya clutched the USB drive and the charm. Somewhere in her grandfather's insurance file was the key to destroying Mallory and his partners. They just had to live long enough to use it. Mallory's penthouse occupied the top 3 floors of the Pinnacle Tower in downtown Los Angeles. Getting past security would be impossible for most people. Dominic Ventura wasn't most people. He left Aya with Vincent at a secure location with strict orders. Copy the USB drive, send backups to 3 different trusted contacts, and if anything happened to him, release everything to the media. Then he walked straight through the Pinnacle's front door at noon, when the lobby was packed with business lunches and distracted security. The elevator required a key card for the penthouse. Dominic produced Mallory's own card, lifted from his head of security during their first confrontation. Sometimes old-school pickpocketing was more reliable than hacking. The penthouse doors opened to reveal floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Mallory stood at the bar, pouring scotch like he'd been expecting company. Ventura. Right on time, he didn't turn around. I assume you came to negotiate. I came to make you understand what happens next. Mallory finally turned, his silver hair perfectly styled, his smile empty. You break into my home to threaten me?
Bold.
Stupid, but bold. He gestured to the shadows near the windows. 6 armed guards stepped forward. Dominic didn't flinch. You file kidnapping charges. You send mercenaries. You're trying every play in the book. Want to know why none of it's working? Enlighten me. Because you're used to buying problems away. Money, lawyers, hired guns, that's your world. But you just picked a fight with someone who built an empire on bodies, not bank accounts. And now you're terrified. Mallory's smile tightened. I'm not afraid of you. You should be. Dominic pulled out his phone and played a video. Security footage from 15 years ago, grainy but clear enough. Young Carter Mallory walking through a burning compound, stepping over bodies, directing men in tactical gear. Mallory's face went white. This is from your Aegis Solutions days, Dominic continued. Funny thing about digital files, they never really disappear. Your mercenaries recorded everything. Standard protocol, right? Cover your ass in case clients don't pay. Where did you get that? Aya's father was thorough. He knew exactly what you were planning. He documented everything, financial transfers, communications, videos. He built a dossier that would bury everyone involved in Operation Chrysanthemum. Dominic pocketed his phone. And you were dumb enough to bring his daughter here. Mallory drained his scotch in one gulp. You don't understand what you're interfering with. This isn't some territorial dispute. The Siki routes are worth billions annually. 4 crime families, 6 international cartels, and half a dozen legitimate corporations depend on those networks. Built on mass murder. Built on necessary elimination of obstacles, Mallory's mask slipped, revealing something cold and reptilian underneath. The Sikis were dinosaurs clinging to outdated codes. We offered them partnership. They refused. In business, you adapt or die. 200 people, including children. Acceptable losses for the greater economic infrastructure. He said it like he was discussing quarterly earnings. You think you're the hero here? You're a criminal, Ventura. A killer. At least I built something legitimate on top of my sins. There's nothing legitimate about you. Mallory laughed. Oh, this is rich. The Mafia boss has moral standards. Let me explain reality to you. He leaned against the bar. If you release that evidence, yes, I'll face charges. Maybe even prison. But so will everyone else involved. Chun Wu, Antonio Greco, James Richardson. Every major crime family on 2 continents will be exposed. Good. You think it's good? The power vacuum would trigger wars that make the Siki massacre look like a minor disagreement. Thousands would die fighting for control.
Cities would burn.
Is that what you want? Is that what your little bride wants? Dominic moved closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to call off every mercenary, every lawyer, every resource you've aimed at Aya. You're going to cancel that fiancé visa and ensure she gets legal residency, without conditions. You're going to disappear from her life completely. Or what? Or, I release the evidence anyway. And before the FBI comes for you, I'll make sure Chen Wu and his partners know you kept records of their involvement. Let them deal with you first. Mallory's confident facade cracked. That would be suicide. They'd come for you too. Maybe. But I'll die knowing I took you with me. Dominic smiled, and it was terrifying. And unlike you, I've made peace with that possibility. The penthouse fell silent except for the distant hum of traffic below. You're insane, Mallory finally said.
No, I'm tired.
Tired of men like you buying and selling human beings like commodities. Tired of watching the powerful crush the innocent because they can. Dominic turned toward the elevator. You have 24 hours. After that, I start burning everything down. Wait, Mallory's voice was strained. Even if I wanted to comply, I can't. This isn't my decision alone anymore. I told my partners about Aya. They're already mobilizing. Chun Wu has assassins en route. Greco's sending his best enforcer. Richardson's hired a Black Ops team. Dominic stopped. When? They're probably already in Los Angeles. I tried to tell them we could contain this quietly, but they don't trust loose ends. Mallory actually looked frightened now. I've lost control of this, Ventura. They're coming for both of you. And if you think my mercenaries were dangerous, these people are in a different league entirely. Then I guess we're going to war. This isn't a war you can win. Dominic stepped into the elevator. Then I'll die making sure you lose. The doors closed on Mallory's terrified face. As the elevator descended, Dominic called Vincent. Gather everyone. Full mobilization. We're about to have very dangerous company. How many are we expecting? Dominic thought about the 4 major crime families, their combined resources, their desperation to keep their secret buried. All of them. The abandoned steel factory on the outskirts of Los Angeles had been closed since the 80s, but tonight it hummed with activity. Expensive cars lined the shadows. A Bentley, a Mercedes S-Class, 2 armored Range Rovers. Inside, Carter Mallory stood before 3 of the most dangerous men in North America. Chun Wu, leader of the Red Lotus Triad, was 50-something with silver streaking his black hair and scars that told stories he'd never speak aloud. He'd built his empire on ruthless efficiency and had personally executed 23 rivals. Antonio Greco, underboss of the Greco family, wore a $1,000 suit and a cold smile. His family had controlled New York's underworld for 3 generations, and he'd ordered more hits than he could remember. James Richardson looked like a corporate executive, which he was, technically. His security consulting firm supplied weapons to anyone with enough money, including governments that officially didn't exist. Behind them stood their soldiers. Not ordinary thugs. These were specialists. Military contractors, cartel enforcers, triad assassins. 23 killers in total, each one worth a dozen normal men. This better be worth our time, Mallory, Greco growled. I flew 3,000 miles because you said we had an emergency. We do. Mallory projected an image on the factory wall. Aya's passport photo. This is Aya Nakamura, also known as Aya Siki, the last surviving member of the bloodline we supposedly eliminated 15 years ago. The room went silent. That's impossible, Chinwu said quietly. We confirmed every death. Every single 1 inch. Apparently, Kenji Siki managed to hide his daughter before we reached him. She's been living under her mother's maiden name in Japan. Until 3 months ago. How did you find her? Richardson asked. Facial recognition software flagged her when she applied for a passport. I arranged to bring her here quietly. A mail-order bride scenario. The plan was simple elimination, no witnesses, no complications. Mallory's jaw tightened. Then Dominic Ventura got involved.
Greco laughed bitterly.
The Phantom Dawn. Of course. You couldn't handle one girl without triggering a war with the West Coast's most dangerous mafia boss. I tried to retrieve her quietly. He refused to cooperate. Now she's under his protection, and worse. Mallory pulled up another image. The USB drive. Kenji Siki left evidence. Financial records, communications, video footage. Everything documenting Operation Chrysanthemum. The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. How much evidence? Chun Wu's voice was deadly calm. Enough to bury all of us. Bank transfers, names, dates. Video of me at the compound. Mallory's hands shook. If Ventura releases that information, we'll all face international charges. Money laundering, racketeering, mass murder. Life in prison if we're lucky. Death penalty if we're not. Richardson stood, pacing. So we have a mafia boss with evidence that could destroy 4 major crime families and a dozen corporations. What's Ventura's play? Blackmail? He doesn't want money. He wants the girl safe and us gone. Mallory pulled up surveillance footage of Dominic leaving the Pinnacle Tower. He gave me 24 hours to back off. That was 6 hours ago. Then we eliminate both of them, Greco said flatly.
Tonight.
Simultaneously. Overwhelming force. No survivors, no evidence. It's not that simple, Mallory protested. Ventura's smart. He'll have made copies, sent them to multiple locations. Kill him, and they get released automatically. Then we find the copies first. Chun-Woo shook his head. This is a mistake. Ventura has 40 soldiers, a fortified mansion, and 15 years of experience fighting wars. A direct assault will be costly. You have a better idea?
Greco challenged.
We use leverage. Everyone has something they can't lose. Chun-Woo pulled up his own files. Ventura has a crew he's loyal to. His lieutenants, Vincent, Marcus, Lucia. We take them. Trade them for the evidence. Ventura won't negotiate, Mallory said. I've tried. Everyone negotiates when you're holding the right cards, Chun-Woo smiled, and it was like watching a snake decide to strike. We don't just take his lieutenants. We take everyone he cares about. His accountant, his driver's family, his supplier's children. We make the price of protecting this girl higher than even Ventura can pay. Richardson nodded slowly. Scorched earth. I like it. We need the girl alive, Mallory insisted. At least until we know where all the evidence is.
Fine.
We take Ventura's mansion, capture the girl, torture her until she tells us where Daddy's insurance file is hidden. Then we kill everyone and burn the evidence. Greco looked around the room. Unless someone has objections, silence. How many men can you mobilize? Chun-Woo asked Mallory. 20 for my security company. Former special forces. I'll bring 15 of my best, Greco said. Greco family doesn't send amateurs. I have 12 triad enforcers in San Francisco, Chun-Woo added. I'll have them here in 4 hours. Richardson checked his phone. My contractors are already in Los Angeles. 18 men, fully equipped. Military-grade hardware. Mallory did the math. That's 85 trained killers against Ventura's 40. Plus we have surprise. He won't expect a coordinated strike. When?
Greco asked.
Tonight. Midnight. We hit the mansion from 3 directions simultaneously. Chun-Woo pulled up satellite imagery of Ventura's cliffside estate. His perimeter is strong but not impenetrable. We breach here, here, and here. Richardson's team provides sniper support from the hills. Mallory's mercenaries take the front gate. My triad and Greco's soldiers sweep from the flanks. What about the girl? Richardson asked. Take her alive if possible. Dead if necessary. Chun-Woo's expression was ice. But Ventura dies screaming. We need to send a message. No one threatens our operations and survives. The meeting lasted another hour, finalizing positions, coordinating communications, distributing weapons. By the time they dispersed, dawn was breaking over Los Angeles. None of them noticed the small figure in the factory rafters, one of Dominic's street informants, a kid named Miguel who'd been paid to watch Mallory's movements. Miguel was already on his phone. Boss, you need to hear this. They're coming. All of them. Tonight. Midnight came fast. Dominic stood on the mansion's roof, watching heat signatures bloom on his thermal scope. They were coming from 3 directions, exactly as Miguel had reported. 85 men against his 40. Poor odds by any measure. But Dominic hadn't survived 20 years by playing fair. Vincent status. Charges planted along the east perimeter. Claymores on the western approach. Snipers positioned on the cliff edge. Vincent's voice crackled through the earpiece. Boss, we can still evacuate. Get Aya out before.
No.
This ends tonight. One way or another. Below, Aya was locked in the reinforced safe room with Marcus standing guard. She'd wanted to fight, but Dominic had been firm. This wasn't her war to die in. Not yet, anyway. The first explosion lit up the night. Mallory's mercenaries blew the front gate with precision charges, advancing in a tight formation. Dominic smiled grimly. Predictable. He pressed the detonator. The driveway erupted. Claymores shredded the first wave, sending bodies flying. The survivors scattered for cover, but Dominic's snipers were already firing. 3 more dropped before they reached the fountain. East side. Vincent shouted. Triad coming through the gardens. Chun-Woo's enforcers moved like shadows, using the landscaping for cover. They were professionals. No wasted movement, no panic. But they didn't know about the motion sensors Dominic had installed last week. Automated turrets rose from hidden compartments, 762mm rounds chewing through foliage and flesh. The triad scattered, returning fire, but the damage was done. Their advance stalled. West Side breach. Lucia's voice. Greco soldiers, 20 strong. The west wall exploded inward. Greco's men poured through the gap, firing indiscriminately. 2 of Dominic's crew went down before Vincent's team could respond with grenades. The explosion threw bodies against the cliff face. But more kept coming. Richardson's snipers opened fire from the hills, suppressing Dominic's rooftop positions. Bullets sparked off concrete around him. Dominic rolled behind an air conditioning unit, then popped up and fired 3 precise shots. One of Richardson's snipers tumbled from his perch. His earpiece crackled. "Boss, they're inside." Ground floor compromise. Dominic abandoned the roof, sliding down the emergency ladder to the second floor. Gunfire echoed through his home, the elegant hallways he'd walked for 10 years now filled with smoke and blood. He rounded a corner and found 3 of Mallory's mercenaries advancing toward the safe room. They didn't see him. Dominic dropped all 3 with headshots before they could turn. Marcus status. Safe room secure. But they know where we are. They're bringing shaped charges. Hold position. I'm coming to you. Dominic sprinted through the chaos. His mansion had become a war zone. Bodies in the foyer, fires spreading, windows blown out. He passed Lucia dragging a wounded crew member to cover, Vincent coordinating defensive positions from the library. They were losing. A massive explosion rocked the building. The shaped charge. The safe room door. Dominic's heart stopped. He ran faster than he'd ever run, sliding around corners, vaulting debris. When he reached the safe room, he found Marcus on the ground, bleeding from a head wound. The door hung open, twisted metal. Aya was gone. Vincent. Dominic roared into his earpiece. They have Aya. Boss. Multiple hostiles retreating through the East Gardens. Yes, I see her. They're carrying someone. Dominic burst through the shattered east windows, dropping 15 feet to the garden below. Pain shot through his ankle, but he ignored it. Ahead, he spotted them. 4 men carrying Aya's unconscious form toward waiting vehicles. He opened fire on the run. 2 went down. The others dropped Aya and returned fire, using the garden walls for cover. Dominic dove behind a fountain as bullets chewed through marble. A triad enforcer flanked him, knife out. Dominic caught the blade strike, twisted the man's wrist until bones snapped, then put a bullet through his skull. The remaining mercenary grabbed Aya and ran for the vehicles. Dominic chased him across the lawn, his lungs burning. The mercenary made it to a black SUV, threw Aya in the back, and jumped in the driver's seat. The engine roared to life. Dominic fired his last 3 rounds. 2 hit the tires. 1 shattered the rear window. The SUV fishtailed, but kept moving. Out of ammunition. Out of options. Dominic spotted one of his motorcycles near the garage, a Ducati he kept for emergencies. He mounted it, kicked the engine to life, and tore after the SUV as it screamed down the private road. Behind him, his mansion burned. Explosions continued as ammunition cooked off. His crew was still fighting, still dying. But all that mattered was the girl in that SUV. The chase lasted 3 miles down the coastal highway. The SUV was fast, but the Ducati was faster. Dominic pulled alongside, seeing Aya pressed against the window, terror in her eyes. The driver swerved, trying to ram him off the cliff. Dominic dropped back, then accelerated. He pulled his backup pistol, a snub-nose .38 he kept in his boot, and fired through the driver's window. The SUV jerked wildly, then crashed through the guardrail. For a horrible moment, Dominic thought it would plummet to the ocean. Instead, it caught on a rocky outcrop 30 feet down. He abandoned the motorcycle and climbed down. The driver was dead. Aya was unconscious but breathing, trapped in the wreckage. I've got you, Dominic whispered, pulling her free. I've got you. Above, sirens wailed. Police, fire, ambulances, the battle had been too loud to ignore. Dominic carried Aya up to the road just as Vincent arrived in a bullet-riddled sedan. The mansion? Dominic asked.
Gone.
But we won. They're all dead or retreating. Vincent's face was grim. Boss, we lost 12 people tonight. 12 lives. For one girl. Dominic looked down at Aya's unconscious face and felt nothing but certainty. Worth it. Aya woke on a boat, the smell of salt and diesel thick in the air. Easy. Dominic's voice came from somewhere close. You took a hit to the head. Mild concussion. She sat up slowly, finding herself on a yacht's cabin bed. Through the porthole, she saw nothing but dark water. Where are we? About 40 miles off the coast. Heading to Mallory's private island, Dominic appeared in the doorway, his face shadowed with exhaustion and something darker.
Rage.
Vincent's intel team cracked Mallory's communications. He fled there after the assault failed. Took Shin Woo and Richardson with him.
Greco? Dead.
His soldiers told us everything before they fled. The island is Mallory's endgame. Fortified compound, private security, helicopter pad for emergencies. He thinks he's untouchable there. Aya swung her legs off the bed, testing her balance. Her head throbbed, but fury burned brighter than pain. How many men does he have? 15, maybe 20. All professionals. And we have. Me. Dominic's smile was knife-thin. You're staying on the boat. Like hell I am. Aya. They murdered my entire family. Over 200 people dead because they wanted shipping routes. She stood, wobbling slightly. My father died getting me to safety. My mother burned alive. I've been running and hiding my whole life without even knowing it. I'm done running, Dominic. He studied her for a long moment. Finally, he opened a weapons locker and pulled out a compact Glock 19. You know how to use this. My aunt taught me. She said a woman living alone needed to protect herself. I thought she was paranoid. Aya took the gun, checking the magazine with practiced efficiency. Turns out she was preparing me. You stay behind me. You follow my orders. And if I say run, you run. Understood? Understood. The yacht anchored a mile from the island as the first hint of dawn colored the horizon. Dominic and Aya took a small inflatable raft to shore, cutting the motor 50 yards out and paddling the rest of the way. The island was beautiful in a sterile way. Manicured beaches, tropical plants, a compound of glass and steel built into the hillside. Dominic counted 3 guard towers, motion sensors along the perimeter, and at least 6 patrolling guards. This is suicide, Aya whispered.
No.
This is justice. Dominic pulled out a small device and pressed a button. Somewhere in the compound, Miguel, who'd been smuggled onto the island 2 days ago posing as a maintenance worker, would be cutting the power and disabling the security systems. 3 seconds later, the lights went out. The chaos erupted. Guards shouted, flashlights swept the darkness, alarms blared then died. Dominic moved through the confusion like a ghost. The first guard never saw him coming, a knife across the throat, body lowered silently to the ground. The second guard turned at the wrong moment. Dominic's suppressed pistol coughed twice. The man crumpled. Aya followed, her heart hammering. She thought she wanted this, but seeing Dominic kill with such cold efficiency made her understand the difference between wanting revenge and living it. They reached the main building. Dominic disabled the backup locks. Child's play after 20 years of breaking into fortified locations. Inside, the compound was modern luxury, all marble and art pieces worth more than most people's homes. A guard appeared at the end of the hallway. Before Dominic could react, Aya raised her Glock and fired. The shot went wide, hitting the wall, but the guard dove for cover. Dominic used the distraction to close the distance, snapping the man's neck with brutal efficiency. Aim center mass, he said calmly. Deep breath before you squeeze. They moved deeper into the compound, leaving bodies in their wake. Dominic was systematic, precise. He checked every room, cleared every corner. When they found Richardson in a panic room, trying to call for help on a satellite phone, Dominic simply shot him through the reinforced glass. The man died, still holding the phone. Chun-Woo was smarter. He ambushed them in the compound's central atrium for Triad enforcers emerging from hidden positions. Bullets filled the air. Dominic dragged Aya behind a marble pillar as chunks of stone exploded around them. Ventura. Chun-Woo's voice echoed. You can't win this. Even if you kill us, there are others. The routes are bigger than any of us. Dominic reloaded calmly. I don't care about your routes. I care about the girl you tried to murder. She's one person. You destroy an entire economic network for one person? Yes. Dominic rolled a flashbang grenade across the floor. The explosion was deafening. He moved before the echoes faded, firing with precision. 2 enforcers dropped. Chun-Woo tried to run, but Aya stepped from behind the pillar and shot him twice in the back. He fell, gasping. She walked closer, standing over him, the gun trembling in her hands. My name is Aya Siki, she said quietly. You helped murder my family. It was business, Chun-Woo wheezed. This is personal. She pulled the trigger. The compound fell silent except for distant alarms. Dominic found Mallory in the master suite, frantically stuffing cash and passports into a bag. He froze when he saw them.
Please, he begged.
I have money.
Milio.
It's yours. Just let me. Aya raised her gun, but Dominic gently lowered it. This one's mine, he said.
Wait.
The evidence. I can help you find all the copies. We can. We already have the evidence. And we're releasing it. Mallory's face went white. You'll destroy everything. The power vacuum will.
Good.
Let it burn. Dominic stepped forward, and Mallory stumbled backward, tripping over his luggage. He hit the ground hard, scrambling away. Aya deserves to watch you die knowing you failed, Dominic said. That her family's legacy survives while yours ends in a puddle of your own blood. Please. The gunshot was deafening in the small room. Outside, dawn had fully broken. Dominic and Aya stood on the beach, watching the compound burn behind them. Miguel had set the fires, evidence destruction, but also symbolic. Is it over? Aya asked. Almost. One more thing. He pulled out his phone and pressed send. The evidence, all of it, uploading to every major news outlet, law enforcement agency, and intelligence organization simultaneously. By noon, the world would know about Operation Chrysanthemum. Now it's over, Dominic said. 6 months later, Tuscany, Italy. The villa sat among rolling hills covered in olive groves and vineyards, far enough from any city that the night sky blazed with stars. It was the kind of place where the past couldn't reach, where peace wasn't just a concept but a tangible thing you could touch in the warm Mediterranean breeze. Aya stood on the terrace, watching the sunset paint the Tuscan landscape in shades of gold and crimson. Her hair had grown longer, no longer the frightened woman Dominic had found shivering in the rain. The tattoo behind her ear, the chrysanthemum that had marked her for death, now felt like a badge of survival. You're going to miss dinner, Dominic said, appearing beside her with 2 glasses of wine. She accepted one, smiling. I was just thinking about the first night, when you found me at Mallory's gate. I was so terrified I couldn't even think straight. You hid it well. Liar, she laughed, and the sound was lighter than it had been in months. I was a mess. You were surviving. There's a difference. The evidence release had been catastrophic, exactly as Mallory had predicted. Federal investigations spanning 3 continents. Indictments against dozens of high-ranking criminals and several supposedly legitimate businessmen. The power vacuum had triggered brief but violent conflicts as various factions fought for control of the routes. But Dominic had been prepared. He'd coordinated with law enforcement, anonymously, providing additional intelligence that helped them dismantle the networks before they could fully reorganize. It hadn't been perfect, but it had been enough. Have you heard from Vincent? Aya asked. Called this morning. The crew's doing well. Marcus has taken over day-to-day operations. Dominic gazed across the hills. I dissolved most of the syndicate's holdings. Legitimate businesses went to the employees.
The rest.
I walked away from it. Any regrets? He considered the question. 20 years building an empire, and he'd abandoned it in 6 months. His reputation as the Phantom Dawn was fading into legend, replaced by newer, younger criminals fighting over scraps. No, he said finally. That life was about survival and control. This is about something else. Aya had spent the past months working with international lawyers to reclaim her family's legacy, not the criminal empire, but the legitimate assets her grandfather had built. Property in Japan, investments, cultural artifacts. She donated most of it to victims' funds and organizations fighting human trafficking. But she'd kept one thing, her name. Aya Seki now existed officially, recognized by the Japanese government, documented, legal. She was no longer a ghost of a murdered bloodline, but its living heir, carrying forward the honor her grandfather had tried to maintain. I got a letter from Master Yoshida, she said, pulling an envelope from her pocket. He says more families are coming forward. People who lost loved ones in the massacre. They want to create a memorial. Will you go? Eventually. When I'm ready to face it, she leaned against the terrace railing. Right now, I just want to exist without looking over my shoulder. Is that selfish? It's human. They stood in comfortable silence as darkness crept across the hills. Somewhere in the villa, Maria, the elderly Italian woman they'd hired as a cook, was preparing dinner. The smell of garlic and tomatoes drifted through the open windows. What do we do now? Aya asked quietly. Dominic had asked himself the same question every day since they'd left California. He'd spent 20 years as a Mafia boss, and before that as an angry kid fighting to survive. He'd never imagined a life beyond violence and power. But standing here, watching Aya smile at a sunset, he realized he'd been given something impossible, a second chance. We live, he said simply. We wake up tomorrow and decide what we want to be instead of what we had to be. We make mistakes. We find purpose. We build something that isn't founded on fear. That sounds terrifyingly normal. Terrifying, he agreed. But maybe worth it. Aya turned to face him fully. I never thanked you. Not properly. You lost your empire, your home, 12 of your people, all because you chose to help a stranger in the rain. I didn't lose anything that mattered, Dominic met her eyes. And you're not a stranger anymore. Something shifted between them, a recognition that had been building since that first night. Two broken people who'd found each other in chaos and somehow built something worth protecting. Aya stepped closer. Dominic Ventura, retired Mafia boss, what exactly are you suggesting? That maybe we stop running from the past and start building a future. Together. If you want. I want, she kissed him, gentle and certain. But I have conditions. Of course you do. No more secrets. No more hidden lives. If we do this, we do it honestly. Agreed. And if any more billionaires try to import mail-order brides for murder, we destroy them too. Dominic laughed, the sound rusty but genuine. That's a given. They went inside as stars emerged overhead, leaving behind the ghosts of who they'd been. Inside, Maria had set the table with simple Italian food and cheap wine, nothing like the opulence of Dominic's old life or Mallory's sterile luxury. It was perfect. That night, Aya dreamed of her parents for the first time without waking in terror. In the dream, they stood in a garden of chrysanthemums, smiling, telling her they were proud. That she'd honored their sacrifice not through revenge, but by choosing to live fully and freely. When she woke, Dominic was beside her, his hand unconsciously reaching for where his gun used to be before remembering he didn't need it anymore. Outside, dawn broke over Tuscany, golden and new and theirs. The Seki bloodline hadn't ended in fire and massacre. It had transformed, carried forward by a woman who'd survived everything meant to destroy her. She would build a legacy not of violence but of resilience, not of power, but of choice. And beside her would stand a man who'd walked away from darkness to find light. Together, they would prove that even from the ashes of atrocity, something beautiful could grow. The past was written in blood and betrayal. But the future? That was theirs to create.
The end.